Hello out there, this is Waking Angel 2001 coming at you with another review of the World of Nintendo line. This one is the Breath of the Wild Link, which is the figure that I've been looking forward to for quite a while, and he finally starting to show up at Targets. Now, there's something up with this wave in that it only has 3 figures. There is the new Mario Maker Mario, this Link of course, and a Luigi featuring opened hands. I believe Medicom Collector, a fellow YouTuber and toy customizer, has already done a review of the Mario figure, and as I'm not really a big Mario collector, I will just leave it at that. But yeah, Breath of the Wild Link, yet another Link variant. Now, this figure is going back to the store because it was a defective piece of crap. The head and waist joints are a joke. They're completely wobbly and have almost no friction to them. And worst of all, the left arm, right arm, my left, his right arm completely disarticulates if you move it too much. This is because the pin that goes through the joint doesn't have the mushroom caps on the ends that keep it anchored. It's just a tube. So there's nothing that stops it from just sliding out of the joint and causing the arm to fall off. I have never seen such a woefully badly done toy from this World of Nintendo line. I always thought that there was more quality control from Jakks Pacific. I was absolutely livid and was prepared to tear this thing down in the review for having such absolutely poor construction. But I bought a second one just to give them the benefit of the doubt, and this one did not have those issues. His waist joint is nice and firm, his head does not wobble around, and his arm doesn't fall off. So okay, Jakks, you dodged a bullet. I'm not going to slam you with a negative review of your defective toy, although I am going to make a note that you need to work on your QC. This never should have made it out of the factory. It should have been recycled back for its plastic. Of course, this one isn't completely flawless too. Look at that arm. Look at that. It's like they sculpted this channel to cut into so they could put the pin disc in, but then they cut off center. I mean, it doesn't affect the way the articulation actually works. The arm is still fine, but that just looks off. Like, come on, how did that happen? Alright, so let's actually start to review the figure itself. Okay, so I know that there is literally hundreds of potential costume variants you could give to the Breath of the Wild Link, so I believe they tried to keep it simple by just giving us the, the royal tunic that he wore in service of Zelda. It seemed to be the most appropriate thing to give him. So let's get this out of the way, a quick comparison between the other World of Nintendo Links. First, the Skyward Sword Link, which, as we all remember, was a Wave 1 figure back before they figured out what scale they would be making these toys in, so he came up a bit short. And then the more famous Ocarina of Time Link, which, it's actually exactly the same height. So yeah, he's pretty much in perfect scale with Ocarina of Time Link, although as a different incarnation, his proportions are a little different. If I were to come up with any flaws, I think he's a bit broad-shouldered, because everything about the Breath of the Wild Link is that he was a pretty slim guy. Everybody who would always look at him would underestimate him. People who didn't already know he was the hero would think that he was just some schlub, and he was even able to pass for a woman when he went to the Gerudo town. So, like, making the figure this broad-shouldered, especially when his waist is this narrow, just looks a little bit off. I mean, the Ocarina of Time Link's shoulders don't look that broad, and he is actually meant to be pretty stacked. Of course, this is the physique I would expect of the Twilight Princess incarnation of Link, is what I'm trying to get at. It's also visible in his face. It's a really... Oh, sorry about that. It's a really nice face, don't get me wrong. That is a really good sculpt. The thing is, like, I don't know, it's like his chin's a little bit too wide. I mean, he doesn't look hyper masculine, but his features are a little bit more, he's a little bit more square-jawed than the Ocarina of Time Link, which has a more angular face. You know, that, like, you know, reads slightly more feminine, which, like, this same face probably would have suited this Link just fine. They didn't have to cast a new face, just new hair. But, you know, we're going with what we went with. Alright, so let's take a look at the rest of the deco. All the details are actually pretty well captured here. You get the little white pattern on the front of his shirt, which kind of looks like the hilt of the Master Sword. They even got these little triangles painted on the sleeves. And look, they even picked out the detailing on that arm guard, which, now that I look at it, looks a lot like Gerudo stylings. Could it be that there was the hero's garb carried on some influences from the other races, including the Gerudo, once they renormalized relations with the Hylian people? After all, they probably had a bit of a falling out after Ganondorf tried to conquer Hyrule. On his hip, you can see the Sheikah slate, which is beautifully well painted. I mean, that's just awesome. It doesn't come off, it's a permanent attachment. It's actually glued in place on his hip there. But, you know, I mean, aside from taking it up so he can take some selfies of himself, there's really no reason to make this a removable accessory. It's just fine hanging there. His left arm has that little rubber, and it's like, I think it's supposed to be like a buckler, a leather buckler, you know, like, because although, like, everything would tell me that you would wear a buckler on your guarding arm and then put the sword in your attacking arm. But much to my chagrin, Link was right-handed in Breath of the Wild. So shouldn't the buckler be on the left arm? I don't know. I don't know medieval garb. Moving down, you can see the design is painted on his tunic, and he has pants with much smaller, pointier boots than the Ocarina of Time Link does. Coming up the back, you can see they didn't skip on the detailing in the back. He even has a couple little sculpted in pouches, and then his nice little ponytail. Very nice. Aside from a seam up here near the top of his head, it's all very well sculpted. He looks pretty darn good. So in terms of capturing the look, aside from just being slightly broad-shouldered, this actually is a pretty good capture of what the Ocarina of Time, of what the Breath of the Wild Link looks like. Okay, so let's talk articulation. As I was saying, he has a ball-jointed head, he has a waist swivel, I believe it's ball-jointed, but aside from arching his back slightly, I can't make it do much else. Universal pin discs in his shoulders, universal, you know, those pseudo-Figma joints that they use for the elbows, although the sculpt of the sleeve means that he gets a full 90 one direction, but when you start to use his bicep swivel, that unbends his elbow slightly. He has hinges and swivels at the wrist, which is really cool. And here is the big falling. Hips are pin discs, universal joint, just like every other Link. Skirt is made out of an incredibly stiff and not flexible plastic. I mean, look what happens when I try to pull his leg forward. You see that? Do you see the stress marks forming on the plastic? This plastic was not made to bend. I cannot believe it. I mean, they did this right with the Ocarina of Time Link in that they made his skirt softer. They even did it to the Skyward Sword Link, which was their first attempt, and with the Toon Link, it didn't even hold his legs back. The Toon Link had perfect. So they got it right 3 times, 4 if you count the repaint, 5 if you count the re-release of Toon Link, but they completely messed it up with Breath of the Wild? Come on, like, are they afraid? Is this supposed to be like the farewell wave, so they don't care? That's why there's only 3 figures in it? Because, man, that really sucks that his leg articulation is so held back. He can at least move his legs outwards because the skirt's cut that way, but it really, really hurts to figure that he can't bring his legs forward. That's just terrible. Which is a shame, because below that, he has really good knees. And he has a bootcut swivel, and he has ankle pivots and ankle rotation. He has excellent leg articulation in theory, just held back by his hip skirts. His skirts completely limit his legs, and that's terrible. I mean, you can get a wide-legged stance, but that's it. Wide legs are all you're going to be able to get because you won't be able to have him step or kneel or do anything else with his legs, all because they are held back by his skirt. Like, fantastic articulation limited by poor sculpt. It's the first Gypsy Danger all over again. Alright, so let's move on to accessories. Link comes packaged with 3 accessories. A Traveler's Quiver with some arrows sticking out of it. They are not removable. An Ancient Arrow, which is pretty darn awesome. The paint job on this is fantastic, as is the sculpting. Although, it's kind of huge. I mean, if the arrows are this big, no wonder they can one-shot Lionels and Guardians. And a simple Traveler's Bow. I guess the Traveler's Bow is pretty iconic from all the promotional material, although I kind of would have liked it if it was like a Hylian soldier bow or something like that, or a royal bow, you know, something a little more impressive. Although I guess it does look kind of cool that like that you can have like a humble weapon, because you know, really makes it look like you're struggling. There's a string here, and yeah, I don't know why he's a nylon string. Like, but you know what? Most of the time when they make bow accessories on toys, don't even bother with the bowstring. I know some Lord of the Rings figures that would prove that. So yeah, they actually went to the effort to put a string there, so I'm not going to complain. In fact, they even put a notch on the back of the Ancient Arrow so that, you know, so that you could actually notch up an arrow in the bow. That's kind of silly. Okay, so as you can see right here on his hip skirt, this is probably why they made the skirt out of a stiffer material to accommodate this peg, but then only the rear of the skirt needed to be made out of this material, and the front could have still been made out of softer material. I don't know. So you just kind of peg it in like this. I believe, given the fact that Link would wield the bow here in his left hand, you would have the arrows sticking off to the right, so he would be able to reach out and knock them. And it is possible to get him to pose holding the bow. Let me see if I could stage that, because it's kind of complicated to do. So yeah, it is possible to make him hold the bow and kind of look like he's drawing it. The only thing is that, yeah, that's not really a natural position to hold your bow. Like, he can't, like, given the way the arms go, like, if, like, because, like, the knock is just kind of wedged into his hand, and it's not a firm grip at all, so it's really hard to actually get him to convincingly draw the bow. Like I can get him to face the same direction that the bow is pointing by turning his head. Also, that peg's not very strong, so the quiver is going to fall off constantly. But, you know, who holds a bow out that far from themselves? That is, like, anyone who knows even the basics of archery is going to know that that's not how you hold a bow. But still, if you're looking at it from a profile, you probably wouldn't care too much. It wouldn't be that visible. Anyway, if you wanted a figure that had enough articulation and range to actually look like he's drawing a bow and arrow, for that you can go ahead and get a Figma. Alright. One nice bonus is that he's still compatible with the Hylian shield and Master Sword that came with the other Link figures. I mean, there's nowhere to plug in the scabbard on his back. By the way, this is the Ocarina of Time shield and sword. I had a couple left over from when I made my Fierce Deity Link. Because of the way that the shield has a clamp on it, he has to hold it in his right hand, meaning that you are making a left-handed Link the way he should be. Although, I guess it isn't accurate to his depiction from Breath of the Wild. But you know what? I don't care. I am sick and tired of all of Japan's right-washing, you know? Like, they took one of the few characters who is canonically a lefty, and they took that from us. I tolerated that conceit when it was necessary for motion controls, but you know, like when motion controls were no longer necessary and they still made him a righty, I was offended. I was genuinely offended for my people. After all, we only represent 10% of the overall global population. And to be even further, and we've been demonized in the past. Left-handed people were at one point considered evil. And there are still some cultures where if you're found to be left-handed, they will force you to learn to write with your right hand. Ironically, a lot of these are in Asia. So, you know, to make a left-handed protagonist and then to take that away from us, I will not stand for that. But yes, ranting aside, this is actually a pretty good figure. Okay. Assuming you don't run into QC issues, because Jakks Pacific really seems to have gotten lazy on the QC for this wave, and you get a good one, he's going to be fine. The limitation of his leg posability is the only issue that I really have with this figure, assuming there's no problems with the figure's overall construction. So that being said, this has been a review of the Breath of the Wild Link figure, and I will catch you guys pretty soon with hopefully another custom. This is Wake Angel 2001, signing off.